Better late than never. Better late than never. Today is Advent 1, and I love Advent. It is my favorite time of year. It is my favorite church season. I also there were a lot of factors that led to it being, I think, like, I don't know, 8:30 Eastern when I'm finally recording this. But I wasn't going to miss a Sunday. I've not missed one yet. And also, it's Advent, and so I had to. But so this will be another off the cuffer. We'll see how it goes. I'll try not to get too long-winded, which is one of the risks of going off the cuff. Our two women for today are Tamar and Mary. Now, Tamar, what the one that we're talking about is the one in Genesis. Okay, so her story is a little bit different, and I'm guessing the one that you've not heard, right? There's the story of Absalom and Amnon and Tamar later, but this is a different story. This is a woman who lived in and adhered to the patriarchal structure of her time, which said that if one husband dies, then you marry the brother, and you marry the brother, and you marry the brother. And so she's a widow twice over. She's waiting years for another brother to age to the right appropriate age. And so meanwhile, she's just there, living, kind of. Protected, yes. But, so then, context, if you are only reading the passage for today, the verses named for today, what has happened is this one that she has been waiting for is not given to her. And so she takes matters into her own hands. And I love this about her. But she basically says, you know, Judah, if you're not going to hold up your end of the bargain, I'm going to find a way to still get what I need, which is a child, right? So in a patriarchal society, that, especially that kind of patriarchal society, you were dependent upon the men in your world for protection and for livelihood. And she was in this weird gap. She was a widow. She didn't have a son. It was just kind of a rough situation. And so she figures out how to trick Judah into impregnating her. And what's interesting about that is in the process, she obtains the things from him that put her more in power, that help her, his signet ring and his staff, that make her the leader. She's in Jesus's line. She's in Jesus's line, and we don't tell her story. She's in Jesus's line, and she had a rough go of it. Throughout the passages, it tells us that God, her first two husbands were not pleasing in the Lord's sight. Let's sum it that way. So she had a rough go of it, and yet there she is in Jesus's line. So then follow that through to Mary. I think the most I've ever heard about Mary as something other than the mother of Jesus. I think maybe in the Catholic Church, kind of that elevation of her, right? But Wilcox points out she and Elizabeth both really are prophetesses. And what I love about that is that Wilcox is able to lay out all of the pieces of a prophetic call and show how Mary's visit from the angel meets all of those steps. So we have this woman in Genesis, Tamar, who has endured the death of 2 husbands, waits years for a third, and is meanwhile childless, which means a lot in that society, and eventually has to kind of trick her way into getting pregnant. She's in the line. And now we come to this woman to Mary, who's a prophet. So Mary and Elizabeth both are given words, are given people, right? Prophetic acts, bodily prophetic acts. John and then Jesus, right? So what's baffling to me, Advent is this time of waiting expectantly, right? Expectant hope, expectant waiting. Tamar waited expectantly. She had expectant hope. And it did not arrive the way that she assumed. I would imagine not the way that she hoped. But she did what she had to do. She waited expectantly. What's baffling to me about that, I said that word a minute ago and then just veered. What's baffling to me about that is we don't talk about her. She's in his line and we don't talk about her. Mary, she waited differently, right? If you watch the Nativity Story, the movie that came out a long time ago now, it portrays Mary as this young adolescent female who's just kind of trying to figure out what she wants to do with her time, how she's going to live, kind of making eyes at Joseph a little bit. He's making eyes back, but they're young. They're young. She's trying to find her place, find her role. Never dreaming that she would join the ranks of the prophets she's been taught about her whole life, because she would have been taught of all of their words and deeds. So the angel visits her and he calls her to bring into this world the one who would save it from itself. So how, if we have a prophetess who is the human mother and a woman further back in the line who made a way for herself, how do we arrive at a time and a place where in the church named after that baby, women are limited, devalued? How did we get there? It's a mess, right? It's a mess. So I guess the point being, Tamar had within her all that she needed to get where she needed to go. God guided her and directed her, and she did things she didn't want to do. I guarantee it. But that was used. And so to limit her, to eliminate her, which has happened a lot, or to degrade her to some sort of that she's unethical in her sexual act. Even Judah himself says she's more right than I, because he knows he messed up. And Mary, her expectant hope is to survive, to see the angel's words come true, which she sees phase 1 of that with the birth of John, and Zechariah's mouth being freed. So she waits expectantly, sensing that it's not going to be an easy road as a young child. I don't know how we get to a point where religion has so demeaned and diminished and devalued women when it is just abundantly clear that God uses all people to bring about the goodness and the grace and the love and the mercy of God. All people. Mary, the prophetess, was called. Tamar was called to be in the line of Jesus. And so we tell her story. And we tell Mary's story, and we tell it differently, and we honor her, and we call her what she's due to be called, a prophet. And Elizabeth, too. She gets lost in there a lot. Elizabeth, the prophetess, as well. They were called, and we are called to keep going. I will see you next week. Take care. Thanks for being here.